Welcome to Lip Service for Contractors. Here you'll learn what moves the needle in your business. With your hosts, Brigham, the deep thinker, Josh, the $100 million contractor, Zach, the confused millennial, Laura, the foreigner. Lip service. It's not about dictatorship. It's about leadership. It's not about duplication. It's about innovation. It's not about stuff. It's about your people. Strap in and get ready for some lip service.
And we are back with another episode of Lip Service for Contractors, you guys. We have a phenomenal show for you today. It is all about the real job that your CSR has inside your organization. So we're going to get to that and a whole lot more in 60 seconds. Chances are you love what you're hearing on Lip Service for Contractors. And if you want to go deeper, have an actionable playbook, or just want to learn from some of the most successful and profitable contractors in the industry, check out Clover Marketing from Josh and Laura. They give away free, amazing information, tools, SOPs, scripts, and processes that help their family business grow to over 140 million. And those same tools have helped other contractors in the industry blow up their business and grow an average of 20% every single year. Check out growwithclover.com/free gifts. They update the free gift section all the time, so make sure you keep coming back.
Power Selling Pros is the customer service coaching company for contractors. Their one-on-one coaching for CSRs helps contractors book at least 85% of their calls and wow more customers. And their group training for technicians helps you create a better buying experience in the home and close more sales. Visit powersellingpros.com to learn more about how you can make more money with their coaching programs.
All right, welcome back to Lip Service for Contractors. What is the real job of a CSR? If that's in the back of your mind, well, we've got a lot of answers for you today, and we'll let you decide whether or not they're the right ones. So, what is it about CSRs? What do you guys think?
So I think this one's gonna be interesting, number one, because obviously anybody who's been listening to this podcast for a while know that me and Brigham are aligned in a lot of things, but certainly not everything. And he is the CSR expert. I'm curious how we differ in this. Let's start with the basic. Let's start with what most contractors think a CSR's job is. I think that's the easiest place to start. And I'll start and I'll let you guys kick in. I think certainly the CSRs think this, and some business owners, but most CSRs think that their job is to answer the phones. It's to answer the phones and to book the call and maybe create a good experience during the process. I would argue that's like a construction worker saying his job is to go to work every day. Well, yeah, but there's a lot more to it than that, right? So I would make the argument that if you were to ask a CSR to define their job, more or less, I just define what they're going to say. Where's everybody's thoughts on that?
Well, I certainly agree with you about what an average contractor believes when it comes to answering the phones. Their job is not to answer phones. In fact, I don't want them to ever answer a phone again. Instead, I want them to book every call that comes in and wow every customer. Now, if they can change their focus from answering the phones, and by the way, answering the phones, you guys, that's what happens at McDonald's. You drive up to the window, what's your order? And that's what happens day in and day out, 1,000 times a day. You drive to McDonald's and you say, what's your order? And anybody can take an order. Okay, we're not order takers. That's not what we do. There are a lot of customers that call in and they've got questions before they want to book. What do you charge to come out? Want to talk to a technician? What do you charge for a pound of R22? I think it's just a tune-up. All these things come in, they're not ready to book. So they need to have a good experience first, right? They need to be understood. They need to be cared about, reassured they've called the right place. All those things need to occur before you can book that call and wow that customer. And so your primary job, in my opinion, as a CSR, is to keep the dispatch board full. Just keep those calls a coming and let the dispatcher do what they do, which is to book for profits. But they got to have something to work with. And So the CSR's job, fill the box. Fill the box. Every call that comes in, book it so that we keep our technicians working. So that would be my take on a CSR's real job.
You mentioned wow more customers, and what I recently read on it's this other contractor newsletter that I get like every 3 weeks. It's Behind the Wall podcast, whatever that organization is. Anyway, what they say is it takes a new customer who has never done business with a contracting company or a home services company before. It takes 4 interactions it takes 4 interactions, and within that 4th interaction, they judge whether they'll ever do business with this company or not. Yeah. Apparently, it was this study that's gone on in the contracting space. 4 interactions. By the time the 4th interaction, they've either chosen to do business or not to do business with this particular company.
Yeah, and those interactions, just so everybody's on the same page, it doesn't mean 4 phone calls.
No.
It means they saw an ad, that's 1 interaction. They went to your website, that's the 2nd interaction. Then they had the phone call with you, that's the 3rd interaction. And it could be, there's multiple ways of getting to that, and that's not a set way, but it doesn't mean you've done business with them 4 times.
No, and say for instance it's that 4th time, and they call in for a price, and if that experience is amazing, heck, the likelihood of them becoming a client is far more exponential than if it sucks. If it sucks, that's that 4th time, that 4th interaction. And why would they do business with a company that they're contemplating doing business with and get a good experience versus calling a CSR and there's just, you can feel the disinterest.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little bit off topic, but let's get so like the job specifically of a CSR. Yeah. I 100% agree with you, Brigham. One piece of it is to make sure the board is full. And that means inbound, outbound, text messaging, emailing. It could mean 100 different things, by the way. It doesn't just mean answering the phones. That's part 1 of it. Part 2 of it for me, there's actually 3 parts for me. Part 2 of it is creating an amazing customer experience. Mm-hmm. That's the first real contact they have with your company, and it sets the tone for the rest of the experience. If you have an amazing CSR that really sets the tone, it gives you so much more freedom, to be honest, to make mistakes down the road. And because you're going to make mistakes, you could eat up those mistakes if you start with an amazing experience. If you start with a poor experience, you better do everything perfect after that, which maybe you do, but you're certainly not going to do that every time. So to me, the second thing is creating an amazing customer experience. Any thoughts, questions on that?
No, I've definitely got comments, but I'm still curious about number 3 for you, Josh. What's number 3?
Number 3 is the one that I don't know. Everyone agrees with us on this podcast, but maybe not every contractor agrees. And it's the way I think. It's the way I've been taught to think. And by the way, it's the way every big business in our industry thinks. A CSR's job is to generate more revenue. Period. There's lots of ways of doing that as well. Notice when I talk about these, like creating amazing customer experience, there's lots of ways of doing that. Filling the board. Don't make the assumption the only way to do that is to answer the phone or to call out. There's other ways too. I know companies that all their CSRs text message customers, all their CSRs email, they're all templates. It's all set up, right? For generating revenue, these are things like cross-selling, selling maintenance agreements over the phone. The vast majority of your maintenance agreements better be sold over the phone. If you're not doing it right. I'm just being honest. Collecting money over the phone, driving higher ticket items. So if they call in for a repair, can we set an install on the spot? If it makes sense, let's go out there and get a salesperson out there, right? And doing those by the ways. I know we've talked about by the ways before, but just making sure we're pushing something so we can actually literally generate revenue from that CSR. A CSR, a lot of business owners think of as an expense, as a cost. And if they're good, there should be direct revenue from them. And I'm not talking about like, hey, when we have this amazing customer experience, the tech does better. That should for sure happen. That's number 2, creating an amazing customer experience. But they should literally pay for themselves many times over by just what they sell over the phone. Or, to be clear, over text message or email or many, many other ways.
I have a question for you guys. So, ye obviously have more experience when it comes to CSRs. What is the perfect experience? Is there a formula when a person calls in? Is there a consistent formula for delivering an amazing experience when a customer calls?
Yeah, so the formula is found in the Pattern for Excellence, and it's definitely something we've covered in other podcasts. But for the sake of review, I'll go over it. There are 8 principles that we want CSRs, our trainees, to master
Mhm.
to create a wow experience for the customer. First is to be positive. Why? Because positivity attracts people. And they've constantly got to work on that. It's really hard when a customer is calling in and saying, hey, you've been out to my home 3 times in the last 2 weeks. It's pretty difficult to be positive when calls like that come in on a regular basis. So you've got to proactively work on your positivity. We focus in on preparation as the second principle. Why? Because preparation inspires confidence. And so the CSR who is constantly preparing, how? Listening to their phone calls, getting feedback from a coach, practicing best practices on how to answer even the most difficult phone calls coming in from customers. When they're ready, when they're prepared, customer calling in, it doesn't matter what their vocation is. A CSR who is well practiced in what they do will book that call while that customer every time, no matter how difficult. All right. So they've got to be great listeners. In fact, over the phone, you've got to show the customer that you're listening. I mean, it's not just, you don't have the luxury of eye contact or being able to nod your head up and down. It's none of that. You have to actually express your understanding. Wow. Oh, so it's this, it's all those types of things to show the customer that you understand them. And it invites connection. That's what listening does. And so caring is the next principle. The thing about caring is that you've got to be empathetic. You've got to show them that you are there and you truly care about their situation, so that when they say their son is 4 months old and they can't go without AC, you have the ability to respond and say, wow, that's not a good situation. Well, we can definitely help you with that, which leads us right into the next principle, which is to give your attention before you take information. And then it goes into asking questions to find out what's missing, creating value, making sure that you are being valuable over the phone, and of course, being grateful. Why? Because that gratitude helps create unity between you and the customer. So once you master those 8 principles, you're going to have an outcome. Which we call winning the moment, which is another way of wowing that customer. You take a look at that moment, you're there, you're present, and you act in a positive way to effectively win that moment. And so those would be the methodology or the principles that we would use to create a raw experience for the customers. Does that answer your question, Laura?
Yeah, totally. I think that's super helpful, because I'm sure there's people listening to this podcast who would only love Power Selling Pros to come out, train their CSRs, but it's not always financially realistic. So I
Not
think
as much as
questions,
you think. I mean, make the phone call, ask, talk to them.
Why?
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. They don't. I agree. But there's definitely people that have that mindset. So yeah, maybe it is worth it is worth calling.
Yeah.
But again, I think these just laying that out is super insightful. So yeah, thanks.
By the
Yeah.
way, anybody who wants, we already did, I think 2 podcasts, a deep dive where I gave my opinion, Brigham gave his. We all chipped in on the eight, what do you call them?
Principles.
8 principles to wow customers or create an
Mhm.
amazing customer experience.
Mhm.
I would recommend you go back and listen to it. We deep dive and all that.
Mhm.
To me, I'm going to add a little caveat to that. That's how you create amazing customer experience. But what you asked for was, number one, how to do that. But really, I think you asked kind of like how the customer flow should go too, right?
Yeah,
Um,
both.
so we can provide scripts and we can kind of do all that stuff. Scripts are beneficial because they're a good starting point. You never want a good CSR reading off a script for obvious reasons. It's robotic. It's not ideal. You have to teach the principles, right? But I think it comes pretty easily. And I'll give my best attempt. And I know Brigham and Zach are going to jump on this, and I'm probably going to say something they don't agree with. But essentially, you answer the phone in a pleasant, positive way. The first thing you want to do is always disarm the customer, understand that they aren't in a good position 99.9% of the time when they call you. So you have to be considerate. You have to be understanding of the process. Then you have to get the customer's contact information, go through your normal process, whatever CRM or field management system you're on. And then you're going to set the call. You're going to set the call, set expectations, let them know what they're going to experience, what it's going to be like, paint that picture of that amazing service that you're going to provide. And the last thing, and it's super, super important, and so many dealers don't do this, you better make an offer at the end of it. Never, if you close the call at 95%, good for you. That's what you're supposed to be doing. I'm very proud of you. If you do that alone and you don't make any offers and you don't make any sales, you're not doing it right. You need to do, I think we've done, remind me again, have we done like my, oh, by the way, cadence?
Yes.
Yeah. Listen
Again,
to that. I don't know what podcast that is. Do you know what podcast that is?
I don't, but again, like we always say, email us. We have a sheet ready and we can just shoot it right back to you.
Yeah, just email Laura at growwithclover.com. We tell you exactly how to do, oh, by the way, it's a soft, non-aggressive way for your CSRs to constantly bring up new potential offers to make you direct money, which is the third thing they need to be doing, which is bringing in direct revenue.
Yeah, so I completely agree with the flow. In fact, we do have a call flow. If you guys want it, we can absolutely share it. We'll make sure that Zach, if you will work with the team here and make sure that they've got a copy of one of our call flows so that you guys can get it. In fact, if you were to call in or just text in, we'd be sure to get you that call flow. A couple of things after you get their information, be sure to build value before you present a dispatch fee. And the more authentic that value can be, and what I mean by authenticity is that you want to customize the value based on what the customer's need is. A generic value is building experience is something easy, right? You could follow a script and just read it off, and that's fine. But what's better is customizing it specific to the customer's need. And then as far as offers go, I was going to tell you guys a quick story. I was in Columbus, Ohio, working with a dealer there. Spent the whole day training their CSRs. And at the end of the day, I started teaching them about selling service agreements right over the phone. Now, there's a lot of companies that are uncomfortable with this. Why? Because they want their technician to sell service agreements. They want the technician to have access to the commission that's coming in, right? Because you sold the service agreement. Well, here's the thing. When a technician sells a service agreement, they're usually selling it after they fix the problem. What that means is that you're selling it after the emotional high of it all is over. Now, what do I mean by emotional high? Well, a customer is dealing with emotional angst when they initially call you. What's the angst they're dealing with? Well, they have a system that usually works all the time and it keeps them comfortable and they can go on with their lives and not have to worry about a thing, except on one beautiful morning, they wake up and it's not working the way it should. And all of a sudden they're really cold or they're really hot. And now they're dealing with some emotional angst. Now, while they're in that emotional angst, that emotional pain, that emotional turmoil, you have the opportunity, the CSR does, to listen, to care, to reassure that you can help, to ask the right questions, to create value for the technician coming out at the very end. Take a quick look at the notes and simply say, Mr. Jones, I'm looking at your notes. I noticed you don't have a service agreement with us yet. We've been out to your home 3 times and yet no service agreement. Why is that? And in the back of their head, the customer's gonna be like, I don't know. I don't know, because they like the CSR, right? They like working with the CSR. They've spent all this time creating a wow experience for that customer. And so the customer's saying, tell me more, right? And then the CSR simply says, look, this is awesome. It gives you priority service, or it gives you discounts on all these different types of products. And the best thing about it is it prevents things like this, the thing that you're dealing with right now, from happening. Now, Mr. Jones, it's really simple. I can get you on it by you either charge a monthly fee or you charge an annual fee, whatever it is that you guys do. But you have the opportunity to sell a whole lot more service agreements while they're dealing with that emotional angst than after the fact.
We're not talking like 10% more either. We're talking 4 to 5 times as many. A good CSR could sell 50 to 100 maintenance agreements a month.
Yeah.
A month.
Yeah.
So let me tell you the rest of that story in Columbus, Ohio. And so those 9 CSRs were pushing back like crazy. They're like, man, I cannot I can't do this. I can't, please don't make me sell over the phone. Right. So I said, look, here's what I'm going to do. I completely changed my flight. I stay the next day and I tell them I'm going to answer the phones with you. And sure enough, I was there the next day answering the phones with them and showing them how to sell a service agreement. And in 2 hours, I sold 3 service agreements. And everybody was on board because they saw how easy it was. And now they were motivated to create that wow experience. Why? Because after they put those emotional deposits in the customer's bank account, right, in their emotional bank account, it was very easy at the end to say, hey, you don't have a service agreement. Why not? And it's as if the customer felt silly for not having it. So sell service agreements over the phone. You'd be surprised how much more you sell, because Josh is right. The CSR is talking to what, 20, 30 people a day. Technician goes out to what, 4, 5 homeowners a day. You see the amount of people you're talking to a phone while they're dealing with this emotional angst. I'm telling you, it's a combination for absolute success in service sales.
Yeah. And a lot of people that fight this, right? They think that they're selling on the phone and it's creating, let's be really clear. When you sell an agreement over the phone, on the whole process, number one, that CSR should be rewarded. They should have a spiff program of some sort and motivation for doing that, right? It's better for the customer significantly. They feel more comfortable. They feel safer. They get a discount on the repairs, whatever it is. It's better for the technician, by the way, too. They may have lost that potential spiff for that maintenance agreement that they weren't going to sell anyway. But they're certainly going to be more likely to get that repair, sell that accessory, because they've created a better experience over the phone and tied that customer in. It's a win across the board. Now, Isaac, I know you wanted to say something real quick. You want to hop in?
Yeah. So I got 3 questions that I imagine contractors listening to this might be thinking right now. So number one, regarding maintenance plans, we train and talk to so many companies that either don't have a maintenance plan or they don't want their CSRs to sell the maintenance plan. We talk to an astonishing number of owners and managers. When we ask, do your CSR sell maintenance plans? Their answer is, oh, no. We let the technicians do that. We encourage our CSRs to bring it up, but we don't let them sell it. Why would a manager not let the CSR sell a maintenance plan? And why should they? Well, we've talked about why they should, but why would they not?
I think there's a fear that they lose customers, that they're going to lose that call if they ask for something. But there's just no truth to that. There's 100% no truth to that. I think that's the biggest reason not. And they worry that maybe the technicians will be upset. But that's also not true at all. They will get used to it very, very fast, and it affects no one. In truth, there is no logical reason why you wouldn't want a CSR selling. There's no financial reason why you wouldn't want a CSR selling, and there's no customer reason. So most of the time that people don't like this, it's because, I hate to say it, but it's because of ignorance. They've never seen it. They've never tested it. They've never experienced it. So they just assume it's bad.
Yeah.
And that's just not a great way to run a business.
Yeah.
They don't trust their CSRs to sell.
Right.
Which means, it's either you have the wrong CSRs, which is possible, you haven't trained them, which is possible, or most likely, you're just wrong. This is easier to do than you think.
Yeah.
I want to make one comment too, because we're going down a rabbit hole about maintenance agreements. So I want to come back, but this is a big problem too. So many companies don't even really track their maintenance agreements. It's unbelievable. And I'm talking like some really big successful companies. I'm not going to name a name right now, but I work with a pretty large company. I work with a lot of large companies, and the one that's coming to mind, they were tracking just how many new ones they sold, which is great. Like, hey, we sold 300 new maintenance agreements this month. It's like awesome. How many were we supposed to renew? I'm like, oh, we don't track that. Well, okay. How many have we gained from the month before? We don't track that. It turns out they sold 300 new ones, but they were supposed to renew 350. And they only renewed 40. So they had lost 10 agreements in this amazing month that they had, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you're tracking. And when I say tracking, new agreements sold monthly and annual, right? How many were supposed to renew? What's your renewal percentage? Renewal percentages can easily be 90%. Most companies could get above 80%. If you're below that, we need to create a better process, right? But it's about how much you gain, right? If you sell a whole bunch, but you're still less agreements than you were before you started, that's not a good winning formula either.
Yeah. So quick question then, just to get to the center of that comment. Is it more expensive to acquire a new customer or or retain an existing customer?
I'm gonna throw a red flag here, and here's the reason why. Of course, it's less expensive to retain a customer than get a new customer, but that's not actually what we're talking about, because the phone's already rang. We're already having a conversation with them. We've already paid to get that customer. It's not necessarily relying on maintenance agreements. So it's not like a direct comparison. Everybody's heard that story, and it is true. But to your point, a retained maintenance agreement customer, they're retained for a reason. It's more likely they're going to have bigger issues. It's more likely they're going to do systems. They're more tied into the business. They are worth more. I don't know if they actually cost more to get, but they are worth more to you.
Yeah. And my question was, is it easier to keep, is it less expensive to keep them? And I know that there's going to be exceptions to that rule.
Of course
right?
it is.
There's going to be customers that come up that, and people still know their names. They might be screaming their names right now, right? That happens all the time whenever I bring up, hey, who's a customer that you would hope doesn't call back in? And everybody's got a name, right?
Well, you shouldn't.
Right.
You should fire that customer.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Instead of being their therapist, for Pete's sake. But it happens all the time in every company we work with. But yes, you want to retain your customers. You want to keep them. It is easier to keep them. Of course, you always want to get new customers as well. But my goodness, you've worked so hard to get that customer. The whole point of a service agreement is to keep them on the hook, so that when they do have a system that breaks down, guess what? You're there, right? So,
well, not just that, it's a better customer experience. It's a win all the way around. On average, a maintenance agreement customer in our industry is worth just over $10,000 in lifetime value, compared to a normal customer, which I think is like $1,500 to $2,000. So they are worth far more. And obviously, the longer you retain them, the more they become worth, because someone who buys a maintenance agreement for 10 years, by the way, they're going to replace their system sometime during that. If you have them for 1 year, it depends when you get them, right?
yeah. I had a thought back on keeping the board full. This being about the real job of a CSR.
Yeah.
Keeping the board full is all fine and great, but I can hear business owners saying, "Well, yeah, we do that." Okay, cool. I'm glad that you do that. Here's my concern. If you haven't listened to the real job of a dispatcher, one of our podcasts, it's a good one. Please listen to it, and you'll know exactly what we're getting at here, or at least what I'm getting at. Because I know that you want to keep the board full, but sometimes when the board becomes too full, you go into the CSR room and you say, no mas. Now, the minute you do that, what happens psychologically to a CSR is that you don't want them to achieve their primary goal, which is to keep that board full. So what I'm suggesting is to do something really, really, really crazy. And that is never tell them to stop. Ever. Don't tell them to stop. Instead, let's find a way to work with the dispatcher and get them incredibly good at what they do, so that no matter how much business comes in, you have the ability to handle whatever comes in. Because if they don't work with you, they're going to work with somebody else. Now, if you're busy, that's okay. We've addressed this in many podcasts. All right. If you're really busy, chances are so is everybody else. And if they're going to wait for someone, then they might as well wait for you, which is one more reason why you've got to stay focused on just have a long-term view here. With the CSR, we want to maintain the fact that they got to keep the board full no matter what.
I agree 100%. It's not the CSR's job, or any CSR's job, to call enough boards. By the way, it should never be a dispatcher's job either. There's some real damaging ways of doing that. Don't ever let a dispatcher cut off your calls. Well, I think we've already covered that in pretty significant detail. But it's a dispatcher's job to shift the calls. They'll figure it out, put them on the board, let a dispatcher do their job and have success at it. keep putting those calls on. I agree 100%. I do want to cover one more thing. I know Zach's raising hands, but I have a question for you, Brigham, because when you were going for the workflow, one of the things you said was adding value, which of course I am on the board with. Before your dispatch fee. Do you believe in dispatch fees or trip charges?
Okay, so that's a great question. It's a question that dealers ask on a regular basis.
This conversation.
Yeah, and some dealers want you to mention the dispatch fee, right? And others don't want you to mention it. I want you to build value regardless for the person that's coming out to your home. Now, whether you want to present a dispatch charge or not, you know what? That's your call. I want to make sure the technician.
I don't think that's what he's asking.
You're avoiding the question.
What's that?
Do you believe in dispatch fees or trip charges?
Do I believe in it?
Do you think you should do it?
Why
I mean, I believe it exists.
Why?
I'm
why
saying.
Not? If
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a very specific opinion on this.
Okay, good. I'd like to hear it.
I personally am not a fan of a dispatch or a trip charge fee ever. And there's a really specific reason for that.
Oh.
Every single call is so valuable to me. I don't know whether that call is for a $79 tune-up or a $10,000 install. I cannot tell until I go out to the house, period. I have to make the assumption that every call is a $10,000 install, which means I can't afford to lose a single call. And when someone calls in and it's a common question, hey, what's your chip charge? What's your dispatch fee? And I give them a number, there's a certain percentage, regardless of what that number is, that I'm going to lose. And I cannot lose one single call. So I am really adamant about this because I've seen the numbers, I've tested it. This is not my theory. I've proven this to be the truth, right? That you should never charge a dispatch and trip charge. Now, to be clear, you have to work your way around this, not just not do it. Now, what I recommend is a diagnostic fee. A diagnostic fee sounds different than a dispatch or trip charge. And I'm going to give the whole spiel right here on the phone because it's a really common on the phone on the podcast. It's a really common question, right? So a customer calls in, hey, what's your dispatch fee? And this is the script I teach. I'm going to paraphrase. I'm not going to do it perfectly, but so some companies do charge a trip charge or a dispatch fee. And personally, I think that's crazy, charging for you just to come out. We would never charge a dispatch or a trip charge fee. Now, we do have a diagnostic fee. That's only $79. And what that covers is all the time it takes for us to take out the tools, take apart your system, figure out exactly what's going on, and give you a firm price on exactly how to fix it. You know you have a problem today. You got to figure out how to fix it. Now, the cool part about that diagnostic fee is if you do any work at all, we waive that diagnostic fee. So your answer, does it cost us anything to come out? Do we have a trip charge or dispatch fee? No. If you do any work at all, it costs nothing. See how that's, I've eliminated that potential issue. I close more calls. I create a better experience. By the way, when a technician goes out, there is the mindset, I either do the work or I lose $79, as opposed to I've already spent the $79. It's a totally different mentality for the customer and the technician. It makes a gigantic difference. By the way, let's just be all perfectly honest about that. Did I lose that diagnostic fee?
No.
Hell no. I built it into my pricing. So I've lost literally nothing. I've saved way more customers up front. And I forced those customers, not force is the wrong word. I've convinced those customers with a little bit more motivation, a little bit more psychology to do more repairs and have more accessory sales. Never, ever, ever am I a fan of dispatch or trip charges. Do the math, try it out for a week. I literally guarantee, use that exact script I just gave you. I guarantee you close more calls.
All right. So I love that. I love it. And I love the setup as well, because I know that there's going to be dealers going, what do you mean you can't charge a dispatch fee? What are you talking about? Especially when they have 4 technicians, 5 technicians, and they've got this huge market and a ton of customers calling them. right? They don't want to waste the technician's time. They don't want to waste their time. All those arguments are coming to play for all the listeners, right? So
Right.
so the way you unpackaged that was really, really cool, because you're not saying do not charge for your services. You're saying absolutely charge for your services, but charge for the diagnosis, right? And I love that. Now there also might be some business owners that say, well, okay, well, what's the difference? Well, Josh just explained the difference to you, that you want to charge for your diagnosis. In other words, you want to charge for your expertise. And what was really cool at the end there, which is, hey, once you approve the work, we'll waive the fee. In fact, I'd make that one amendment there at the end, because I like the word once, because once says it assumes you're going to do it, as opposed to if, as opposed to when, because when and if are both conditional, whereas once is assumptive, right? So
I like
once you do the work, we'll waive the fee. And if you put those two bad boys together, boy, I tell you, you're going to have an awesome closer there.
Yeah, I'm gonna update the script right now. I love it. That's a good point.
Cool.
Small details, words matter, right?
That's right. Words matter.
I'm looking at Zach, and he's got this confused millennial face on. What's going on?
So no, I'm with you 100% there. You went a different direction than I thought you were, Josh, for a sec, because I love the focus on the diagnostic instead of trip charge or dispatch fee. So one of the things we've actually only in the last year started adding to our trainings, once we've seen how it works with companies, is the way we explain it is we say, that's a great question, Mr. Jones. Let me tell you how we work. What we do is we send out a licensed and certified technician to your home in a fully stocked truck. So he'll have all the parts and tools he needs to get started on the work the minute he arrives. He's also back to our company, family owned and operated. We've been in this for 30 years, so you're in really good hands there. Once the technician gets there, he's going to put some foot covers on.
Track back 10 seconds, because the
Yeah, you
people are
cut
going to
out
want to
that
hear
reason.
those words you cut out.
Oh,
Just build that in.
so yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to send out a trained and certified technician to your home. He's going to come in a fully stocked truck with all the parts and tools he needs to get started on the work as soon as he arrives. Now he's backed by our company. We've been in business for 30 years. We're family owned and operated, so you're in very good hands. And once the technician gets there, he's going to throw on some foot covers, and then he's going to do a thorough inspection of your unit to determine exactly what's causing the problem. We have a 10-point, 50-point, whatever, however many point inspection that we do, that we walk through to make sure we uncover exactly what's going on, so that we can give you the most accurate options and pricing once we finish that inspection. He'll finish it, he'll sit down, do a little in-home consultation with you, and let you know exactly what your options are and what it'll take to get that system fixed. And to have him come out and do all that, it's only $79. The best part about that, though, is that once you decide to move ahead with the work, we waive that $79 completely.
So I think that's a good spiel, and I'm just going to give my comments. You guys have probably tested this more than I have. I mean, I've tested this quite a bit, though.
Good.
I don't like that answer for one reason only. You didn't actually directly answer their question until a 2-minute spiel. Whereas the way I presented it right away, people are asked, it's a regular question. How much does it cost for you guys to come out? What's your chip charge? What's your whatever fee, right? And I'm going to immediately say, some companies charge just to come out. I think that's crazy. Now, what am I doing when I say that? I'm separating myself from everybody else. I'm the honest, integrity guy that doesn't charge just to come out. And I've immediately answered somewhat their question. We don't ever charge a trip charge or a dispatch fee. We don't believe in it. However, we do have a small diagnostic fee that's only $79. And then I'm going to go through the process, not a big long spiel, but enough spiel to set expectations. And then the cool part is once you decide to do the work, not when, once you decide to do the work, we go ahead and waive it. I think it's always important, and this is just straight line selling. This is like basic sales techniques across all, is you always want to address and answer the question right away, even if you're just repeating it. You don't have to necessarily answer it 100%, but they're asking a specific question. You don't want to give a 2-minute spiel, and at the 2 minutes you give the answer. You know what I mean? It's much more powerful when you set expectations. And like, that's why we do like most of our customers do this. You're setting expectations subconsciously, and it's way more powerful than you realize. You're attacking the alligator brain or whatever, right? The lizard brain, there's like a million ways of calling it.
Yeah.
But I think it's always important just to answer right away, because you win that answer if you're set up properly. 99.999% of the time. Why be around the bush? Why not just, that's crazy. Some companies charge for a trip charge or a diagnostic fee. We would never charge that. We don't believe in those.
Hmm.
Now we do have, and now I'm just compared to everybody else. They've called 3 other companies and they're price shopping a trip charge. I've instantaneously won, and I've
Yeah.
bought the right to talk to them more.
Yep. And you won because you're following the principle just in a different way.
Correct.
You created value through the diagnosis,
Right.
as opposed to just charging to come out. That's crazy, right? So you kind of downgraded that, and in lieu of that, created value through the diagnosis. So you're following the same principle, the same process.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
You do it faster than a 2-minute spiel.
Yeah. I'm always, there's like a lot of people ask this too, right? And you guys would know this more than me, right? But like, what's the ideal talk time, right? And there's no real simple answers because every customer is different, but there is a range, right? It can't be a minute because you shouldn't be able to book a call in a minute because you haven't built value. It can't be 5 minutes because you need to be selling more than that, right? So you have to build with a plan of how do I build the most value and the not necessarily the shortest amount of time, but in a realistic amount of time so I could get to the next phone call and keep that board full.
Sure. Love it.
Can't wait for Lindsay to hear this.
We're changing that. No. You guys have done a lot of research, and like
Yeah.
what I would recommend you guys do, just like I would recommend everyone else. Like I borrow stuff from you guys too. The first thing I'm going to do is test. You put some CSRs answering that way. I'm willing to bet because I've done it. That they book more calls, and it's ultimately, their job is more than just booking calls, but every call is so expensive to get and there's such a big opportunity cost. I'm really of the belief that CSR cannot lose one single call because in my mind, that's a $10,000 install, which with all likeliness can be. You have no idea. You don't have a magic wand. You don't have a crystal ball. None of us know until we actually go out into the house. It could be for a tune-up and you have no idea how they tell you it's a 3-year-old system and it's not, or has an issue, or you have no idea until you get there. Assume it's an install. You cannot lose one single call. So you have to make sure you are set up to never lose a call. There should be no excuses why they don't pick you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's absolutely in accordance with the principles we teach. And our
Of
goal
course.
for CSRs is to go beyond the script, right? Go beyond, in some situations, a 2-minute spill that builds value, and be creative with each customer and build value. The principle is to build value. So fantastic. Build value before you present a diagnostic fee. Great. That's exactly in accordance with what we teach. So it's very much.
100%. Yeah. Let's be clear. We're all on the same page. We just have a slight tweak to the
There's just different
concept.
language.
Yeah, but words matter. This is selling over the phone. All you have is words and your tonality. Those are the 2 weapons you have. You better be using both. By the way, I think that's going to be maybe a really interesting conversation too. Tonality. If anyone's ever read the Wolf, the Way of the Wolf, I love that book for tonality. It explains exactly how you talk. If you want someone's attention, you whisper, right? If you want, I used to do this and I think it's brilliant, right? So I would go to conferences and I'd speak a lot, obviously, less right now, but you speak and I always introduce myself in the form of a question. You'd be amazed how well that works. And it's like, hey, Josh from Phoenix with Clover Marketing, and people that I've never met in my entire life. I know for a fact I've never met them. They'd be like, oh, hey, Josh, how we doing, man? So good to see you. Like, do you think that makes it easier to talk to people? Of course it does. Do you think that works on the phone too? Of course it does, right? Tonality is so powerful if you use it effectively. That's kind of a whole different. That's a serious rabbit hole.
That's another.
But it's definitely something CSRs can learn from. That is not just say, it's also how you say it. So right. I love it. Well done. All right. So the job of dispatcher, Zach, I don't want to steal your thunder, but it looks like the 3 that we came down to were keep the board full, create a wow experience, and generate revenue. 3 that we can absolutely all agree on. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. No, I agree 100%. With those 3. And I think the important thing to remember too is what's not a CSR's job and don't put a CSR in a box. I think that's really important too. A lot of people, we talked about, hey, their job's to answer the phone. I was like, no, their job is not to answer the phone. That's a potential option. But I really cannot stress enough from a CSR standpoint. Obviously, it has to be ethical. Obviously, it has to follow the company culture. Obviously, it has to create an amazing experience. We're all on the same page on that. But I don't really care how they fill the board to a point. If they're having a ton of success text messaging customers, or maybe they man the chat feature on your website, or they send out emails, or I mean, there's literally dozens of ways. I'm not exaggerating, dozens of ways for a CSR to generate calls on the spot. I don't care what they're doing as long as it's working, as long as it's creating an amazing customer experience. So
Quick,
don't limit your mindset.
quick question. So, say, what is the percentage of calls that a CSR books to be a good CSR?
Of opportunity calls, which means not a vendor, not an out of service area. I think it needs to be above 90%.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's difficult to do that without training and without ongoing feedback from a coach. I'm not trying to be self-serving. I'm just saying it's very, very difficult. The average CSR without training is booking 60% of their phone calls. And in most cases, even less.
Yep.
What does tracking look like then, though? So, yeah, what does tracking look like then?
What does it look like? Like the format that they're using? Or?
Yeah, the format, and I think if we could provide that for dealers, that would be great. But secondly, like, so are you just for CSRs? What are you tracking? Are you tracking number of incoming calls and the percentage in which they're booked? Is that it?
I don't track incoming calls. I track connected calls. So I think that's a big differentiator too. Like someone they actually spoke to.
Okay.
You agree, Brigham?
Yes.
Yeah. So connected
call
calls is really
TPA.
important. I do pay attention to average time on the phone. That's less valuable than you think, but it is a number to pay attention to. They should have a goal for all these, by the way. 50 minimum connected calls per day. That's kind of the goal I look for.
Mhm.
There should be what they upsell or cross sell. So it could be specific things like a maintenance agreement. I think that should be separated out. If you do like plumbing or electrical or some other service, how many you've cross sold. You could also track how many they've upsold. And when I say upsold, meaning like they found out that it's a 12-year-old system, they have a large repair, and they sent out a comfort consultant instead of a technician. Now, not every company does that. I'm a fan of that because why wait? Like if I could get an amazing customer experience and a great comfort consultant out there, I don't want to put the tech in between. That could potentially screw that up. It all depends on your tech. It all depends on your comfort consultant. But it's the same as every other department. We actually have a call center report that basically has KPIs and goals for each section. We'll just share that. Once again, email Laura, pester away.
Mhm.
Anything I missed there, Brigham?
Yeah. Or just review, by way of review, call flow. What if you guys want Power Slam post call, we can get that to you. Just email Zach. But you mentioned duration of the phone call. Gosh, we don't have time, but we should. Well, let me just take 30 seconds. A lot of dealers are very, very concerned about call time. And I understand where you're coming from, right? If every CSR is taking 10, 20 minutes on a phone call, it makes it very difficult to book a lot of phone calls. I get that. If they are following a process, and specifically the process that we teach correctly, it usually takes about 2 to 3 minutes. But you always want to focus in on quality of the call over the quantity, right? Or over the duration of the call. So yeah, I'm sure that dealers are probably asking, all right, how long should a call take? About 2 to 3 minutes. And if
my goal is generally 3 to 3.5 minutes is what I look for.
yeah,
Oh,
and if
another one too, you better be tracking calls booked. That's pretty obvious. I didn't say
yes,
it.
of course, yes, booked
Time
calls.
before answer.
Time before answer is another one that's less. Yeah, I agree. Time before answer, that's a less individual CSR, but that's a call center overall one for sure. You could lose if someone calls and you don't even answer the phone before they hang up. You have no idea what kind of money you're missing. That's like a terrible. Like people don't realize this is one of my biggest frustrations with call centers. And some they're pretty well organized and they don't have that never lose a call mentality. They never do the math on how much that call actually takes, how much it takes to make that phone call ring. It's not cheap.
No.
And they never do the math on, how much that phone call is actually worth. They just kind of like let it go. And, and imagine doing that with your, technicians. Like, hey, we booked these calls. Yeah, I just didn't get to them. I didn't worry about it.
Okay, you're fine.
Yeah, like that would never fly, but we do it on the phone all the time. It's unbelievable.
Very true. Excellent point, Josh.
There's literally so much.
I was just going to say, I've
I'm
got
here
all sorts
on,
of things I
oh,
can
me
say
too.
for you.
There's especially like I'm here looking through Facebook groups and I literally typed in CSRs and there's just a whole bunch of questions. And there's so much we've answered, but there's so much more. But anyway, maybe we could do a part 2, but let's talk about this after the podcast.
Yeah. I'll leave a cliffhanger for something maybe to address next time, and that is the number one reason that I see, at least going into training companies, that CSRs don't generate more revenue or they don't make more calls is because their manager gives them an insane amount of busy work.
Mm-hmm.
Tons of tasks, things that don't contribute to revenue, don't contribute to appointments made.
Mm-hmm.
It's just busy work. And it's a really easy way for CSR to say, well, how can you hold me accountable to generating revenue? I mean, I've got all these to-do list tasks you've made me do, permits to fill out and other, monotonous accounting and payroll and little tiny things in the office. That's in my opinion, the number one reason CSRs don't go and generate revenue. It's because you're giving them lots of non-revenue generating activity. And it also makes the quality of their phone calls worse because then they're just trying to rush it. They start to see customers as things that get in the way of them completing the to-do list.
I've got to ask one question because the only reason I'm doing it is it has a bunch of comments and a bunch of likes on a Facebook group. And I'm super curious. So it says, anyone have a lead inbound CSR that you could share what you pay them per year? I just had mine wanting a raise. I pay her 39 grand plus benefits. She's awesome. And I don't know what I would do without her. Anyways, want to be more than fair to my employees, wondering if that's on par with others or too low. We are in Georgia for comparison. Okay, so what is normal? What's normal? What's too much?
I'm going to let Brigham answer this probably more detail, but I'm actually going to answer this in a really unhelpful way, which is for a salary. I think that's way too high for a CSR.
You think 36 is too high?
I think 36 is too
39.
high.
39, sorry.
39. So they're making 40 grand a year, but that's not high enough for pay. So what I mean by that is the majority of a CSR's pay should come from spiffs, for selling those maintenance agreements, for upselling, for cross-selling. Not an exaggeration. I have seen more than a few CSRs that their salary is 30 grand a year that make 100 grand a year because of spiffs, cross-selling, upselling.
Nice.
That's where you need to be. And if you don't have a plan where their money is generated from being successful, for performance, for doing a great job and creating amazing customer experience, and by the way, making you money, if you're doing just an hourly or salary and you don't have a solid spiff program, then you're underpaying your CSRs. You don't have to pay them 40 grand in salary. You should pay them a lot when they're successful.
Zach's point then becomes even more relevant, because if their take home is based upon incentives by actually booking calls and they've given busy work, of course you're going to demoralize your CSRs.
Their third thing is revenue, right? I treat them in this situation for revenue only, right? Just like I would a salesperson. Anybody who pays a salesperson 100 grand in salary, and there's people out there, and then they have a real small commission structure, that is an instantaneous red flag for me. Like, this salesperson is probably not that good. A good salesperson doesn't want a salary because they know they can make a lot more if they're commission based. That's right. Just the truth. And it's not really arguable. And I know people don't like that. And some salespeople don't like that because they like consistency, because they don't sell consistently.
Yeah.
So many more questions.
I agree. You'd pay the CSR the same way you would pay a really good salesman. If the CSR is good, worth what he or she is asking for, you'd put it in a commission structure and have them earn it. And look, if they earn it, pay them.
Yep. And to kind of give a reference, just a total number, I want a CSR to make more than 70,000.
Yeah.
But overwhelmingly, spiffs. Spiff's
I have one more question.
Oh my god.
Sorry. Okay, so this is another something that's got a ton of comments, so why not address it? When hiring a CSR, what are some key qualities you're looking for in an interview or a resume outside of previous experience? How would you describe the perfect applicant?
Okay, so first things first, you got to hire for attitude.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you train for talent, you hire for attitude. All right, so we'll train them. We'll give them all the tools they need, but if they don't have the right attitude, we're gonna train them jack. We're gonna be wasting our time and their time. So first things first, I'd hire for attitude.
Great.
Yep, I agree. Personality is the number one thing with the CSR. You could train the rest. What you want is someone who's money driven, because that's the kind of organization I like working with. Is it's a sales culture, right? So money driven is important, ambitious is important, and most importantly, they're fun, they're friendly, they're positive. As weird as it sounds, experience doesn't matter that much to me. It's a plus. It's not a requirement. I have and will continue to hire CSRs that are bartenders, that are waitresses, that are, working the front desk, like a dentist. They're super friendly, helpful people. Attitude is the most important thing for me. The rest can be taught. It's not that complicated. So there's not like a set formula outside of they better be positive, bubbly, fun, and good on the phone. And then, money driven is a huge, gigantic plus too, because you want someone ambitious.
So I've got to caution dealers who are listening to this, because if they feel that their call center is full of negative, unambitious people, do not decide after this podcast that you're going to fire those people. Okay, that's not okay. The first thing you want to do as a business owner is look in the mirror and ask why there isn't a positive atmosphere inside that call center. And then decide that you're going to invest in training and coaching and accountability for them, and give them a real shot, a real opportunity to change their attitudes and change the culture inside that call center. Chances are you've got people that are great, better than you think they are. Do not fire them. Give them a chance, and thus give yourself a chance. So yes, hire for attitude, but if you've already hired them, okay, that ship has sailed. Now we've got to fix it.
The one caveat to that, and this is just me, if it's a whole team of negativity, that's on you as the business owner. It's undoubtable. Like, I've not seen an exception to this. Maybe there is, but I don't think you're the exception. If you're listening to this and say, hey, it's my whole team and it's all them, that's not the case. But if you do have one with a bad attitude, or maybe two with a bad attitude, that can and does happen. I'm not saying firing should be your first reaction, but it can be an acceptable reaction.
Of course.
What a holistic episode.
Yeah,
Having a good CSR, keeping them, hiring them.
How to pay them.
The real jobs. Yeah.
It's that's great. I'm really happy with that, guys.
Yeah.
Zach, anything you want to synopsize, or I think we're good, but what do you think?
I think we're good. I think we've had a good synopsis here the last 10 minutes or so. We're kind of reviewing and asking ourselves questions. That's the real job of CSR.
And everything else included.
Keep the board full, wow the customer, and generate revenue.
Lots of it.
Go back, re-listen, share this with all your CSRs. Make sure they all listen to this episode too.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ever have the cool uncle effect? If the boss tells you to do something, you don't do it, but then you have somebody else come in and do it, and all of a sudden it's cool to do.
I've not heard this.
Be your cool uncle.
That makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks, guys. Go change the world.
Thank you for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave us a review in the App Store, and don't forget to share with your friends. Ideas are cheap. Implementation is what separates the winners from the watchers. Go out and implement these ideas. See you on the next episode of Lip Service for Contractors.